Each year, athletes from across the globe converge on Haines City, Florida, test the limits of their bodies and the resilience of their spirits at Ironman Florida 70.3. This documentary invites you behind the scenes of an athlete's return to triathlon after a forced 4-year hiatus, a story of grit, ambition, and unwavering dedication. From early morning swims to relentless training rides beneath the hot and humid summer sun and pounding footfalls on winding roads, we will witness the evolution of a competitor with a humble and grateful heart striving for redemption. But this is more than a race. It is a voyage through adversity and triumph. Through moments of doubt and bursts of inspiration, there will be setbacks and surprises, victories large and small, and the discovery of the true meaning of perseverance. Join us as we chronicle the milestones and missteps, the sweat and celebration culminating in one unforgettable day. This will not only be a tale of athletic determination, but a portrait of the human spirit, undaunted, unbreakable, and ever reaching for the extraordinary. Welcome to Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. Welcome, everyone, to Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. We are at the end of week 14. And so this has been the weekly video or training recap for Ironman Florida 70.3 that is on December 14th of 2025. I'm your host, Coach Justin. I'm head coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing. I will be racing Ironman Florida 70.3 this year. And so let's be honest, this was kind of a challenging week overall as I am nursing a bit of an injury. So if you tuned in last week to the video, I talked about a little setback that I've had. I've been dealing with some tibular tendonitis, so it's posterior tibial tendonitis in my left leg that just kind of came on from nowhere. I think it's kind of been materializing the entire time, where I thought it might have been a little inflammation in the plantar fascia or what, but I honestly, sitting back and kind of thinking about it, I've been dealing with a little bit of sensitivity in this heel area ever since week 1, but I've kind of managed it pretty well. It hasn't bothered me significantly the whole time, but it has been kind of persistent here and there, but it's never really kind of like caused a pause in the training plan or anything else. But I have been actively managing this issue, which is the whole reason behind the run-walk approach to training for this race, has been because of this persistent issue, along with a little bit of Achilles tendonitis in my right leg or my right foot. So it kind of reared its ugly head and really set me back right now. So let's kind of get into it. So this week there was 0 running. There was 0 stuff like elliptical or anything like that would kind of I guess present itself like a run stride. I don't know. I don't really know how else to describe it, but the elliptical closely resembles a run stride without the impact. I do believe that the elliptical kind of over exaggerates the knee drive for my particular run stride. But the doctor said no running, no elliptical, nothing like that for this whole week. So I was on a steroid pack to kind of manage the inflammation and kind of get that down. I spent the first part of the week and the end of week 13 on crutches. Honestly, I could put 0 weight on that foot for at least 2 days. And then I kind of went from 2 crutches to 1 crutch where I could kind of manage a little bit of a walk. But honestly, until probably about Wednesday was when I kind of set the crutch aside and I could manage a little bit of a walk. For this week was Thanksgiving, and I hosted a smaller sampling of family members. The bulk of the family met on the Wednesday, but I could not make it because I had to work, and I haven't been on my job long enough to really accumulate a whole lot of vacation time. Plus, I've already planned for 4 or 5 days down in Florida, so I was not able to make it to my family Thanksgiving. But I had a smaller set of family come on over on Thursday to my house, and I was able to manage that pretty well. I put on one of my compression sleeves for my leg to kind of give some support to it because I knew I was going to be walking around and I was cooking all kinds of stuff. So I think I managed it pretty well. And I did no workouts on Thanksgiving Day. That was one of those days where I just kind of, I really couldn't really do a whole lot. Um, since I couldn't run and I couldn't bike yet either, so the doctor said no cycling for a week. But I'll get into a little bit later on how that went. But this is just kind of an overall picture of how the week went. So let's dive right on in. Let's see kind of like what I was able to get in while managing this issue. So I had a total planned duration for the week of 9 hours and 5 minutes. Now you're thinking, well, if you couldn't bike and you couldn't run, how did you accumulate 9 hours and 5 minutes worth of planned workouts? Well, very, very easily, actually. I still was able to swim my full training swim load. So that was around 9,600 yards for the week. I actually got in 9,700. I think I miscounted on 2 sessions, so I was like 50 yards over, and it just accumulated an extra 100, whatever. But that was for the swim. For the swim this week, I felt pretty good, actually. There was no kick. I could not kick, so it was all pull and paddle work this week. So all of my stuff was using a pull buoy with some paddles. Sometimes I would swim with the paddle. Sometimes I wouldn't swim with the paddle. So I kind of would change things up and do some alternating interval sets. But the overall structure was basically the same that I did. On Tuesday, I did some 400 intervals. On Friday, I did 500 intervals. And on Sunday, I did my endurance swim, which were 1400s. And so I still got in my same swim volume, just with no kick. I had to make a little bit of a tweak during the swim sets because I normally will do a flip turn for my swim intervals, but I couldn't flip turn. I couldn't time it well enough to really kind of control the impact of the wall. Plus, I could only push off with one leg. So for the bulk of my swimming, which was on Tuesday and Friday, I used some open turns. An open turn is when you swim up to the wall and you basically touch the wall with your hands, and then quickly kind of what I do is I kind of like push off the wall with my hand, and it flips me to the other direction, and then I just kind of push off the wall with one leg. But I managed it well. It wasn't until like my Sunday swim that I was actually able to start doing some flip turns. I kind of figured out the timing a little bit and going a little bit softer on the turn rather than kind of really flipping it, because as my legs would hit the water as they come out and flip over, I could feel that sting in the leg as my leg would hit the water, and it just wasn't comfortable. But I kind of figured out how to manage that turn and get a little bit softer of a turn and then time it well so that I wasn't too close to the wall. There were a couple, in the first attempts where I found myself a little bit closer to the wall than what I would really like to, because the turn was taking me longer to get my legs over. And so my momentum was carrying me to the wall closer than I wanted to be by the time I got my legs over. And so I figured out that I had to start the flip a little bit earlier so that my momentum would carry me into it, and I would take the time to kind of get my legs over me and get to the point where I could easily push off the wall with my good leg. Other than that, I felt solid on the swim. This was a pretty good swim week. When I did my endurance swim for 1400s, I still had to kind of like talk to myself a little bit and just say, look, let's just go for a nice swim, right? I'm looking for control. I'm looking for relaxed. I'm looking for just a nice, solid, early vertical forearm as best as I can do. And then just a nice smooth pull through the water. And my swim was really, really good, actually. I finished the swim with tons more energy. I could have kept swimming. So, if I was, if like the interval was 1400, I think I could have easily swam, another 250 per interval. So that would get me close to, uh, let's say like around the 1700. I feel like I could have done that fairly easily. Um, and so I really am happy with my endurance in the pool. Granted, those were with pull buoys and paddles, so the body position is a lot better than what I'm able to get in just straight swimming, just because of the limitation that I've got in my one arm. It really doesn't allow for very good rotation to one side, and so I kind of I'm finding myself sitting lower into the water, and I have to rotate a little bit more than what I would really like to, but I just cannot get that pull with my right arm. It's just, but it is getting better because I do my dry land warm up and I'm getting some better range of motion with that arm. The chest muscles aren't as tight and the neck muscles aren't as tight. And I'm getting some of that scapular rotation in the back, and my lats are engaging pretty well. So I'm happy with my swim right now. The coming week, I'm hoping to get in a good wetsuit practice, as next week is the first week of taper, and I might be making some adjustments, to the way that I approach my taper, simply because I've lost a little bit of time on the bike. I've lost time for the run. There's still probably going to be no running the first week of taper. It's a 2-week taper that I have planned, but the volume that I had planned when I created it, was it 14 weeks ago, I might throw in a little bit extra, simply because I can't run, but I am kind of warming up on the bike a little bit, and so I'm feeling good there. So I don't know. We'll just have to see how next week goes and how I approach it. But I am considering, making some adjustments to taper, since I have had, quote unquote, some time off to shed some fatigue, simply because I've been, trying to recover from this little setback that I've got. But so that's how I was able to get in about 9 hours. I still had all of my strength sessions in there. And so that accounts for another like good solid 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes was what I had planned. I was able to execute 2 hours and 7 minutes of it. So there was a little bit of savings. On the first day that I did weights, I still had my crutch. And so what I had done is I convinced my younger son to go to the gym with me and do the weight session with me. And so he was able to kind of help me get around, manage dumbbells and stuff like that. So that was super helpful. I had a really good time working out with him. It was kind of nice. I'm definitely the kind of person who is more introverted. I like to do my workouts solo. I like to kind of go at my own pace. I just kind of zone out, just listen to my music and just have fun and really kind of push myself. So I'm not the kind of guy that, works out with others, but working out with my son was really fun. Just having that interaction with him, and we could just kind of just lift together. I was kind of joking with him in the car, and I was like, "Hey, were you impressed by some of the weight that your dad was pushing?" And he looked at it without hesitation. He's like, "Yeah." So, I found a couple times where, he was kind of struggling with some of the weight that I was lifting, and he was doing lower reps, but I was doing the higher reps. And so it kind of made me feel good. I'm a 48-year-old guy, and I'm out lifting my 16-year-old, strong son. So that kind of made me feel good as an old guy. But but again, I had fun working out with him. We did 2 days together in the weight room, and the I don't believe I had a crutch the second go around. I may have, but I can't remember. So I'll look back here at Training Peaks and let's see what days. I probably did because my weight sessions were on Monday and Wednesday, so I probably had the crutch with me to help me get around. He was really helpful. Didn't complain, and we did well. So that accounted for let's see, 2 hours and 15 minutes of strength, and I had a total of 9,700 yards in the pool. So the time that those would take, my endurance swim was a long swim, so that put me in, that was well over an hour, and my other ones, again, right around the same because they're about 3K each. So it's 3,000 yards swim on Tuesday and Friday, and then the 3,600 on Sunday. So it was just standard normal volume. And so let's see, what else did we have? We had 0 hours for the run, which is what the doctor ordered. I don't like it, but honestly, I couldn't do it anyway, even if I wanted to. So honestly, that's just the way it is. But I had no long ride planned simply because by the time I got to Saturday, I'd left it open so that I could do kind of like a test bike and kind of see how I was feeling, to see how it would feel to put pressure on that one leg and kind of push on the pedals to really see if it would kind of set things off a little bit. So I left Saturday and Sunday open in terms of bike. And I got on the bike on Saturday, did a little 20-minute kind of a building ride. So, I would ride. This, it was 20 minutes. So I did, 5-minute blocks, and I would do 5 minute at one gear. And then I would add another gear and do another 5 minutes. And then the next 5 minutes, I would add another gear until I was kind of like halfway down the cassette, and just to kind of see how that leg would feel under that kind of pressure. It didn't feel great, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's not like I felt, whole and 100%, but I could tell it was going to be good enough to kind of get some time in the saddle. So I had originally planned, like I said, if the test goes well, I was going to try and do a 2.5 hour ride. After the test was completed, I was really kind of torn because I was like, I don't feel 100%, and it feels like a 2.5 hours might be too much stress on the leg. So I wasn't quite sure how comfortable I was going to be trying for a 2.5 hour ride. So I said, you know what? Let's try an hour and 50 minutes. So I had to kind of tweak the workout a little bit, change the structure, and went with an hour and 50. And it went well, I think. The one thing that I will say is that for some reason, I've kind of lost the feel of the saddle. So, which is kind of frustrating because I was only riding for an hour and 50 minutes, and, my butt was rather uncomfortable. I was shifting around in the saddle all kinds of times, trying to get comfortable, trying to get off, some of the pressure on my sit bones. And I was all over the place. I just didn't feel comfortable. But I could go out, just several weeks ago and do a 4.5 hour ride with no problem outdoors, though. So I don't know if maybe it's just, the act of riding on the trainer for that long, it's just kind of got me, in the same kind of position. But when you're riding outside, you're shifting around as well because you're moving around with the terrain. So you're kind of up, down, and, side to side and all this other stuff. But when you're on the trainer, you're just there. So I don't know if that was the reason on why I might have been feeling a little bit uncomfortable, but it caught me off guard. I didn't expect it, and I didn't think I'd taken enough time off of the bike to really kind of like reset and lose that saddle time, lose the feel of the saddle. But the ride went fairly well on Saturday, and I said, well, since that ride went pretty well, let's do another hour and 50 minutes on Sunday, and let's throw in a little bit more intensity. I kept the intensity for the Saturday ride really at that zone 2 effort. I really wasn't too interested in spiking up into zone 3, like I had originally planned to do. So I kind of tweaked it and just took the intensity down. I was like, let's just stay at zone 2. After the success of the Saturday session, I said, well, now I think I have it in my legs. I don't know if I have it in the saddle area, but I had it in my legs. My quads felt fine, glutes felt fine. I could tell as the workout kind of progressed, the leg was cooperating more and more and more. So that was reassuring, that I felt like on Sunday I could kind of dip into the zone 3 intensity and hold it for a little bit. So I did some ramp ups with some open ride segments on Sunday, and it went well. The Sunday workout was a little bit later than what I would really have liked. I did some of the food prep to kind of help out Stephanie, since I don't have the same kind of volume going on right now. So I made some of the food for the food prep and got on the bike a little bit later than what I would want, and still got in the hour and 50 minutes. So I'm actually recording this video on Monday evening, i.e., again, later than what I would really like, but that's what it is, and this is the time that I've got. So so that's how I was able to get in about 3 hours and 40 minutes on the bike for the week. So I will take that as a small victory. Normally I'm putting in like around the 9-hour mark. So it's about a third of what I would normally see at this time, because I was at full-blown, full volume training as I'm heading into the first week of taper for week 15. But week 14 was going to be my last full training week at full intensity and full vol. So I was a little hard of a pill to swallow, seeing that I was only riding about a third of what I would really should have been riding had I not had to deal with this bit of a setback, and kind of missed the bike. I wish I could have ridden outside, but I didn't find it to be a wise decision to make, just because I didn't know how the leg was going to hold up. Because if I go out and I plan to ride an hour and 50 minutes, but I get into it, and the leg starts to really kind of bother me, then I'm kind of stuck. Wherever I ride, I got to turn right around, and then I have to go back. And I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I was going to overextend myself based on how quick the leg could break down under that kind of strain. So I felt the trainer was the better option to do, just because I could simply just get off the trainer if things kind of went south. And that was the best decision to make. But the Saturday and Sunday session bike workouts went well, and it was reassuring going into next week that I would be able to put in some decent taper volume, given that I still cannot run, and that's kind of where I'm at. So we're at the end of week 4. This might be a little bit of a short recap, since I can't really talk about the run. There's no run, but next week I am going to do a little bit of a test on the elliptical. So on Monday, I have scheduled an elliptical test to kind of see how the foot is going to feel. Because even though there's no impact on the elliptical, you still have that flexion of the foot, and you're still putting some strain and stress on it. So I want to see, how it's going to behave. I know that there's going to be some initial discomfort at the very start, but what seems to be taking place is that it starts to cooperate as I get deeper into the workouts. So, I'm going to just try and be patient. I'm not looking for performance. I'm just looking for signals that my body is telling me what it can and cannot do at the moment. So, but I am no crutches. I am off the steroid pack right now. So, that's where I'm at the end of week 14. So, weekly insights, trying to think on kind of like what I could really talk about. And it's this patience kind of thing where, I'm looking at the graphs that are in Training Peaks, and there's a graph that's in there that looks at your fitness, and it tracks accumulated fitness over time along with mapping out your fatigue. And I was really liking the direction of my fitness. It was a nice steady climb. And then all of a sudden, once I kind of had this setback, it just dropped. And so it was dropping quickly. I mean, it's not like it just dropped all the way back down to where it started, but it dropped significantly. And I don't put a whole lot of stock in that graph, but it does kind of show me a bit of a trend. The numbers are kind of arbitrary for me. I mean, it's like it heavily weights cycling and running. So it does not give you a whole lot of, I don't want to say like fitness points for like strength, and not a whole lot for swimming, which is kind of like what I was able to do this week. And so really when you load up your volume of cycling and running is when you'll really kind of see that start to climb. I don't keep accurate run zones just because it seems pointless for me because I don't run like that. I run just based on feel. So I'm not trying to hit particular pace zones. I'm not trying to hit particular heart rate zones for when I run. I just run based on how I feel. I know kind of like what a zone 2 relaxed run feels like. I know what a tempo run feels like. I know what threshold feels like. So I don't keep that accurate. And so, when it goes to calculate your fitness and stress, it's not accurate when you start throwing in run workouts. I do keep it accurate for bike because I do have fairly up to date power zones, but I don't change my FTP regularly, and I don't test a lot either. I tend to use races, particular like short races, to determine what my FTP is. I'm not a big fan of tests. I've done them before. I know how to do them, but they don't mean a whole lot to me because it's on a trainer, which is very different than riding outside. And, if I'm racing outside. And so I want to really use those types of workouts and races to really kind of evaluate where my FTP is. And this year I did a race that was pretty solid. I think it was a sprint race that was it was a hilly course, and I was being alerted that my FTP was higher than what I had it set based on that performance. And so that's when I changed my FTP and brought it up a little bit, and it reset my power zones for the bike. But I don't train by heart rate. And so what I'm trying to say is, even though I'm looking at this graph and it's kind of feeding my insecurities a little bit, where I'm showing that it says that I'm losing fitness, but I know full well that I don't feel like I've lost a whole lot of fitness. I do know that I've lost a little bit of edge and a little bit of tension in the muscles, but whether that is synonymous with loss of fitness is debatable. So I'm trying to kind of ignore those charts right now because I don't think it's an accurate representation of where I am. So honestly, I still don't know where I'm going forward, when I'm going to be able to run again. I don't know. I don't see any running in week 15, honestly. I don't know if it's worth the effort, worth the potential risk of getting a setback because of it. I'd rather just kind of save it and let it take that extra time to rehab, because what I really need and want, put it that way. Need is a bad word. What I really want is I really want to be able to run on race day. So I'm saving it till I get there. And I don't have a whole lot of time until the race for race day. We're 2 weeks out from race day, so I don't have any time if I were to get another setback from trying to get back too quickly. So I am being calculated in terms of my approach on where I'm taking my training plan going forward from now until we get to race day. So I would say that the insecurity a little bit has been kind of unnerving. It's hard to deal with. I want to run. I do. Me and running, we have kind of a love-hate relationship just because it breaks me down so easily. But I've spent a lot of time in the weight room getting stronger, and I felt like I've held up pretty well up until now for the run. And I don't think that this was a result of poor strategy for my run training. I don't believe I had a bad run plan. I just think that this is just one of those things, man. This stuff materializes sometimes out of nowhere. And it's not like you did something wrong. It's not like you could have done things differently. I feel like I've been super conservative with the run, the way that I've progressed it. But this is just part of the deal. This is endurance sports. Rarely do you go into race day with 100% compliance in your training plan. Chances are you've had to deal with some kind of setback along the way. Honestly, I can say if you have not had any setbacks, then I kind of question on if you're on the one side of like staying too comfortable during your training. So, seeking comfortability will hinder growth and really kind of just keep you from progressing. So you have to take these gambles. You have to try new things. You have to kind of push yourself in a calculated way. I'm not saying just go out there and just do stupid stuff. It's not like I'm saying, well, this week we're having 3 hours of run volume, but next week, boom, we're doing 4 hours. And then the week after that, we're doing 5 hours. I'm not saying that. That's not the kind of risk that we should be taking. But there are calculated risks that we should be considering, because that's where the growth happens. And, erring on the side of too much caution will really hinder your growth as an athlete. And I say that because I've done it. I've been during those phases where, I really kind of wanted to finish a workout feeling, really like I didn't really do a whole lot. I really kind of wanted to always be relaxed and in control. And I think there's a time and place for that. But if it's all the time and every place, then that's a bad approach. And, we have to do things that make us uncomfortable, because race day is going to be uncomfortable. And nobody ever gets stronger by doing things that are easy. So, I'm not quite sure on how else to approach it. It was just kind of a blah week, actually. I will say that I was able to utilize the cold plunge tub almost every day. I did not use it on Thanksgiving, so that Thursday, and I did not use it on Saturday. But every day I was able to get my feet and my legs into the cold plunge and soak them anywhere between 16 minutes to 18 minutes. That's a pretty lengthy time to kind of keep your lower legs in the cold water. But, I believe it's the small things that really make a difference. And it was the one thing that I could do to try and help. Now, whether it helped or not, I have no idea. But I can say, hey, I had it open to me. I took it. Whether it materialized in a faster recovery or not, I don't know. But it's better than saying I had it available to me and I just didn't do it, honestly. So it doesn't cost me anything. It's 15, 16, 17 minutes of my time. So it's negligible. And I can then say, hey, I tried. I did what I could. It was just kind of a bit of a mental struggle, a little bit, as I've been dealing with this thing and trying to find things that I could do, so that I didn't focus on what I couldn't. And that's one of the lessons that I try to instill in my athletes, and it's something that I try to instill. I work on it myself. So at a minimum, I do it to me, because if I sat around saying, "Oh, I can't run, I can't ride, I can't do this, I can't do that," then it really kind of affects me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, rather than saying, "Hey, I can't run, but on Saturday, I'm going to see if I can ride, and we're going to do a little bit of a test and see what happens." Looking forward to that test, kind of keeping my eyes moving forward, not just right down at my feet on where I am right now, because that can be a little bit frustrating. Also saying, well, I can't run, but I can swim and I can go into the weight room. So those are things that I can do. And I know from experience, if I can keep my brain with that kind of focus, it makes it a little bit easier to deal with the stress of rehab and waiting for a recovery. And it gets harder since we're this close to race day. I really start to say to myself, man, I've put in so much work. I have really, really trained hard for this race, and I've put in a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I can't keep telling myself it was all for nothing, because I don't know if I can run on race day. I still have 2 weeks. A lot can happen in 2 weeks, but I'm going to continue to trust the process. I'm going to continue trusting God that He's going to deliver the race that He wants me to have. That may not be the race that I saw me having. I may not be the race that I want to have and the performance that I want to have, because I may be wanting that performance as reassurance that I developed a good plan, or I'm a good coach, or I'm a good athlete, and I worked hard and I did what was necessary. Because honestly, this is His plan, this is His race, and I need to keep my eyes in that direction. Because when I start to focus on what I've done, then I don't feel like I handle that well. I can't have this be looking at me. I have to keep looking forward, and I have to keep looking to God for where He's taking me, where He's taking this race, and just trust Him. And again, this is a big trust exercise for me. I will admit, and it's hard. It is really, really hard to control the insecurities, control the uncertainties, and control the expectations that I formed for myself at the very start, at the very beginning. Um, that is part of kind of endurance sports. We all have this vision on how we're going to perform on race day, and it's always, perfect weather. It's always perfect pacing, perfect conditions. Nothing goes wrong. No mechanical issues. Knock on wood. There's nothing that goes on, and nobody gets in our way. We have clean water, clean space on the bike, and everything just kind of like falls in place. I can honestly say, in the past 10 years of doing endurance sports, I've never had an experience where everything just kind of like just fell into place like a nice clean puzzle. Never have. For me, the way that I describe endurance sports is it's a master's degree in crisis management. And I can say that it's probably a master's degree in that when you kind of first get started. But as you get further and further into it, you kind of earn your PhD. So this is a doctorate. I think I'm now working towards a doctorate in crisis management, as I've been doing this for over a decade. races under my belt and, experiences, the way that I've approached my journey and the way that I kind of want to take my journey going forward. Because I can honestly I believe I'm not done. Whether God says that I'm done, I don't know. But if I had my way, I'm not done. There's more that I would like to accomplish. There's more that I want to do, and there's more that I want to learn, not just by, research and, reading books and learning about new coaching methodologies. There's more that I want to experience. There's more that I want to try. There's different methods that I want to test out and kind of see the intricacies of this beautiful sport that I'm in and that we kind of participate and that we're allowed to do. Honestly, it can be a beautiful living organism that just kind of grows with us, and it kind of interweaves into our lives and it becomes part of us. And I don't want to be done. I'll put it that way. Because I can't say that I don't see me being done, because I have to be open to what God wants for me and wants from me. And, as I talked last week on, the story of Abraham, is this experience that I'm going through right now, is it a test for me to figure out, am I willing to lay down this sport? Am I willing to lay down this important part of who I am and do it because of my faith in God, that, because it's not what he has for me? Am I willing to sacrifice it if he asks? And I could tell you that there were many times where I said, no, God would have to do something significant to me for me to stop doing what I'm doing. I know it's a dangerous thing to say, but, it's because it's my desire. It's what I want. It's what makes me feel good. I still don't know the answer to that question. Could I lay this down if I had to? I would, but it would be really, really hard. It would but there would be a grieving process that would be tied to that, where if I couldn't do this anymore, it's like a part of me would die. I can honestly say that. And I hope that's not what's in my future. But if it is, then that is going to be another piece of the puzzle that I'm going to have to find and integrate and figure out what would be next. But I'm hoping that he's not saying that this is the end for me in this sport. So I'm trusting him. I'm trusting the process. And I had to remind myself of this today, that, I believe and I trust God that's going to deliver the race that he has for me and not the race that I wanted to have. That's another mantra that I've kind of been telling myself over the past few weeks, is that, I want to have the race that you want for me, because I know that his plan and his ability to bring about a race can far exceed any kind of desire or expectation that I could have for myself. So if I'm willing to lay down my desire and expectations and what I want to do and how I want to perform, and say, I want to perform in a way that glorifies you and that, represents and illustrates my faith, then that's the performance that I want to have. Whether that is quote unquote good or better than what I had formed as expectations is yet to remains to be seen. But that's where I'm at. Kind of feel like I'm a bit of a crossroads in this process. So we'll see how week 15 goes. We're rolling into week 15, like I said, and so this is week 1 of taper. I got some, like I said, I got some elliptical tests in there to kind of see how the leg's going to hold up, but I do not have any runs in my training plan for week 15. I do have a nice dose of swimming with very little decline in overall swim volume, so I kept it a little bit higher simply because I have the bandwidth and I feel like it will pay off dividends. There's a day next week where I put my bike in the shop for the race tune-up and all that kind of stuff. So this is the time where we start to do kind of like some real race prep kind of stuff. I'm going to try and put in some kind of intensity this week to kind of stress things out and just kind of see how the leg holds up to it, and kind of replicate some race scenarios in my workouts and see how the leg manages it and how it holds. But I don't want to overstress things simply because I'm insecure in the time that I've lost and the time that I have available, and try and quote unquote make up time, because that's not going to happen. We cannot make up the time that we lost. We lost the time. So just deal with it. Those are the cards that you're dealt. Make the best use of the time you have remaining is what you should be doing, and not being concerned about the time that you've lost. Like I said, I've trained really hard for this race, and I'm trusting that God's going to honor that. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. This was week 14 of Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. My prep for Ironman Florida 70.3 in Haines City, Florida, on December 14th of 2025. A little bit of housekeeping. So if you are looking for some help in 2026, if you're starting to map out what you would like to do, what you would like to accomplish, or you're having kind of a bit of a struggle in figuring out what you want to accomplish, I hope that you will reach out. You can go to tabularasaracing.com. You can send me a message there if you're interested in talking. My website has all the information that you would need about me. It's got videos on my coaching philosophy. It's got a blog. It's got blogs that I've written. It's got all of the videos tied to this particular series on the Florida 70.3 page of the website. But there's other pages that are in there with all kinds of different content. Go to the YouTube channel as well, where you'll find the videos, but all the videos are on the website. If you are enjoying this content and it's been helpful to you, whether that it's given you ideas for workouts and you just scaled them according to your time availability and your current fitness levels, but you've enjoyed those workouts and you found them to be helpful, leave a comment in the videos. If there's something that's in there that you would like for me to talk about, or something that rang true for you and kind of resonated with how you feel or what you think, leave a comment. Especially if you're watching these on YouTube. If you're listening to these on the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast, you can leave comments there as well. There's an option for actually send us a text. I've enabled that on all of the episodes that are in our library. So if you would like to reach out that way, feel free. You can send me a message. This is available on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, wherever it is that you're listening to your podcast material. Feel free to leave us a review or leave a comment. It's greatly appreciated. This has been definitely a labor of love. It's been a lot more time consuming and a lot more demanding than I expected it to be, but it has been worthwhile. It has been something that has helped me grow as an athlete, and just as a Christian, to be vulnerable and open and really kind of show you the good, bad, and ugly of endurance training. Some of it hasn't gone as planned. Some of it hasn't been all that great, hasn't been easy. But then there are things that have been fantastic. So I hope that you've been able to walk away with this with a real perspective, what it's like to train for these types of events. And if, you've kind of experienced similar things, then at least you know that, hey, there's one other person that has endured the same issues that maybe you have, and we're all in this together. We all have similar experiences, and I'm just a normal guy. There's nothing special. I'm just a normal dude who's, married, family responsibilities, works full time, and trains. So we're all in this together. But if you are looking for any kind of coaching services, or you just want help, and or you just want to talk, feel free to send me a message, send me an email, however it is that you want to communicate. There's no shortage of ways to get a hold of me. So feel free to do that. Again, you can go to the Ironman Florida 70.3 page on the Tabula Rasa Racing website. You can see all of the structured workouts. You can see everything that I've done. Each week's plan is out there and free of charge for you. So you can download and feel free to utilize. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to week 14 of this race prep. I look forward to week 15 to kind of see where I'm at and see how the body handles it, and get a better picture on, where the recovery is going with this leg. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. I'm Coach Justin, and head coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.